I'm Edward Warfield. I'm honored today to interview Andy Jones, the Managing Director of the Maryland Venture Fund.
So I hooked up with a friend of mine who had created a little business. His name's Larry Harding. And we hatched this plan in 2009. We thought it could be a really big business, but we were going to need some venture capital to grow it. So in 2009, we put the plan together, and January 2nd of 2010, we went out and we went to the market, and I talked to a handful of venture capital firms that I knew that I thought would have an interest in this SaaS software business with a services component underneath. It was a business where if you were a company in the US and you hired your first employee overseas in the UK or Hong Kong, you needed to do all these things to support the employee, the payroll, the compliance filings in country, the local accounting, the vendor payments. And so what the market was missing at that time, you could get multiple vendors, stitch them together in a country, and they could support you. We did it all end to end, and nobody had a SaaS software product that could hook into their corporate ERP system to do it. So that was the business idea, and we went out to market to raise capital to build on that vision, to build a software product and to expand sales and marketing to grow the business. And we were very successful. We got a good response in the market. We ended up choosing Sigma Partners in Boston and Menlo Park at the time. They had an office, and Baird Capital in Chicago and London. And the reason we chose those two investors versus some of the other folks that wanted to invest in us was we thought Baird was very good in terms of their knowledge of the ecosystem around us, the competitive landscape, the HR software vendors, the payroll companies, people that were tangentially competing with us. And then we thought Sigma was very good in terms of technical SaaS software companies. So we thought that was a marriage made in heaven, and we took their capital and sold them a piece of the business, and we grew the business, and it went very well. It went so well, in fact, that every time we'd go to raise another round of capital to expand the business, Sigma and Baird wanted it for themselves because they wanted to keep increasing their ownership in our business. And they were great partners. They really helped us build our business. They were more than just capital. They helped us with recruiting, they helped us with strategy, partnerships, I mean, all through the evolution. Fast forward to 2014, one of our competitors in Europe, who I had hired a lot of our employees out of as we built High Street, was on the auction block for sale, and the investment banker that was representing the owner of that business, it's about a $40 million business. I got my nose under the tent. We started talking to the firms that were bidding on that asset, and these were big private equity firms. And I said, you know, my pitch, I said, if I had a big checkbook out of a private equity fund, I'd buy this asset. We had built the leading business in North America and South America, and there were two competitors in Asia. And if you put all those together, you had a $250 million business with huge profit margins. You could take that business public. And the PE guys really liked that story. It was an auction process for this company called Nair, and HG Capital won the bid at the end of the day. HG manages about $8 billion. They're out of London, and they bought the asset. And right after they bought the asset, they were in our offices in Maryland here with an offer to buy our business. Now, of course, it was too low, and we rejected it and did the dance, but we knew they'd be back. And a quarter later, they came back and offered to buy our business for $100 million. And that was a great outcome. We consummated that deal. Our investors, Sigma and Baird, made on a blended basis 3 times their money. And when we sold that business, we had 220 employees, and the employees split up the rest. So that was a great outcome, and that was really fun for me in my career, building something from nothing. You know, I'd been on the investing side funding great entrepreneurs, but it was fun to do the other side and build an operating business. And so After we sold that, I had to work for the private equity firm for 3 months, helping them integrate the business, and then I was free to do what I wanted to do next. And how I got involved in the Maryland Venture Fund, I was actually put on the board of the Maryland Venture Fund Authority back in 2011 or 2012, and they put me on the board when I was building High Street because of my venture capital experience with GrowTech and as we built out Boulder. In around 2015, there was a movement underfoot to spin the entity, the Maryland Venture Fund, out of the state of Maryland, and they were looking at where they were going to put the thing, and they ended up settling on putting it with TEDCO. TEDCO is an entity, it's called a public corporation. It's not directly part of the state, it's kind of one step removed. And the reason they decided to put the Maryland Venture Fund with TEDCO is TEDCO does all the seed investing every year. They invest in life science companies, they have a university fund, they have a cyber fund, they have a tech fund. And the theory, which we're executing on today, is if the Maryland Venture Fund was with that, well, maybe some of those seed investments will feed into the Maryland Venture Fund. And oh, by the way, if we rebuild and turn around this Maryland Venture Fund, maybe some of those best practices that we institute with that will be helpful to the TEDCO seed investment programs too. So there's some real synergies, with Maryland Venture Fund being with TEDCO, and it all makes sense. It's up to us to execute on.